I was born in Mexico City, 1957, June of 1957, and my parents are from Tabasco, would be Frontera, Tabasco, Mexico, and my mom is from Hidalgo, Tamaulipas, Mexico. They met after my father went into the ministry. He went to school in Mexico City, and then he was sent to northern Mexico, Hidalgo, Tamaulipas, and that is where he met my mother. They were married in 1949, and then after a few years in the ministry, he had traveled to the United States on several occasions where they had invited him to preach in New York, Chicago, and around lower Ohio or Indiana. Then they decided that he would be a good pastor to come up to Lansing, Michigan, directly from Mexico City. So they needed Spanish-speaking ministers, and that is the reason that they decided they had a lot of labor workers or migrants that were coming from other parts of the country and from other countries that spoke Spanish, and there were no Spanish-speaking ministers here. So that is the reason that we came to the United States. The church immigrated our family. It was my brother and I that were born in Mexico, Miguel Corzo, and my mom, my dad, his name was Miguel Corzo Ortiz, and my mom's name was Maria del Refugio Bernal Diaz. So yes, we came in July of 1962, and then I started school here because I was 5. I didn't know how to speak any English, and that was a little bit hard for me because I couldn't communicate with the teachers. I couldn't communicate with the kids, and they would speak to me and I didn't understand. So I got a lot of notes sent home from the teacher saying she can't communicate, she doesn't speak English, and little by little I learned. And by the time I got to first grade, I was able to help my brother. He was 3, but still I, would speak to him the little English that I knew, and it got them going. And then my brother Joe was born here in Lansing. Then we were moved from Lansing to the Grand Rapids area for a few years. So my brother Sam was born in Butterworth Hospital, which is now, I think, Spectrum, in Grand Rapids. So we lived there for a few years, and my dad traveled a lot around the state, so we got to know the different parts like Muskegon, Holland, northern part of Michigan, the Bay City area, Pontiac, Detroit. So we traveled a lot because he was needed here and there. And but yes, after a certain time, I left my mom and dad and married my husband, and he's also from Mexico. His family and my family, which is I think is kind of neat, are a half an hour apart from each other in Mexico. So that was kind of a neat story. We didn't know anything about each other. We met here in church. But it was interesting. We had 3 children. My oldest daughter, her name is Rebecca, and she's married now. Her last name is now Grabenstein. And then I have 3 brothers. One that still lives in Mexico. He came here. Well, he was born here. The one that was born in Grand Rapids. He decided he liked Mexico better. So my dad had a house down there, and he lives in that house. But my other 2 brothers, one lives in North Carolina, and the other one lives in South Carolina. And yeah, after living here in Lansing for about 58 to 59 years, we ended up moving because one of my sons is in northern Nevada, Elko, Nevada. He works with a hospital. He's a director at one of the hospitals there. So that's why we live out there, and plus it's better for me. But Michigan is my home. I've been here for so long. I've traveled throughout the United States. I've been to about 45 of the 50 states, but still, Michigan is my home place. It's just a beautiful place to live. I didn't have hard, it wasn't hard for me to come up here, though both my mom and dad's family were well-to-do, so we didn't have any issues. But I thank God for being here in the United States. And, with things going around the world, it is amazing. I am more than grateful for America, for Michigan, that took us in, and we've become U.S. citizens and are very proud to be here. God has been so good, throughout, the different things that have gone in our lives, in my husband's, in mine, and our children. And we keep that faith going through keeping the family together, which to me is extremely important. I remember my father would always say, when your brothers have issues or when we have issues, we would all get together. It didn't matter how small it was. We all pitched in. We all, did help one another with whatever it was. And I've learned to do that with my family. I've brought that along to them, and they stick together. And it doesn't matter how far we are from each other, because one of my sons lives in Florida, the other one lives in Nevada, and then my daughter lives here in Michigan. We always take time to see each other, to be together at least once a year. We've had a wonderful life, and this was the upbringing from my parents. Everything has gone really well for us. We've done as much as we could, not only for us, also to help the community in the church with, helping them if they needed food, if they needed clothes. I would do whatever I could to help them or take them to different places. A lot of people that have come up from different areas always would go to the church, and then my dad, would send them to me, and then I would look for different places, food banks, things that they would need, to fill their homes since they were moving here. So it's been wonderful, and it's a good feeling that you can help somebody that doesn't need to help you back. My dad was, like I said, he was born in 1923 in Frontera, Tabasco. His father was not a Christian at the time, and he converted to Christianity, and then he became a minister. And then that's when my dad and his 9 siblings got involved in the church. And when my dad was saved, then they sent him to seminary, which was in Mexico City. But they did have a farm. They had a lot of cattle and sheep and horses, so they had to work a lot there. That's my dad, and my dad was always a worker. He had to always be doing something. So he knew a lot about that. And even when he moved here, he always had cattle and horses in Mexico that we would go down every year and ride. That's why I love to ride horses, and I love to travel because my dad traveled so much throughout the United States and Mexico, just preaching and helping other people. One thing I remember real well is that my dad would take a certain amount of his money and he would set it aside. And that was, the reason he did that is because he always remembered the pastors that had nothing down there. They would live in little shacks with dirt floors, and that would always get to me to see him, that way. But he would take part of his money, and that little bit he would divide among the worst ones off that didn't have anything and that had families. We would also take clothes to him. He would, have the congregation here, which the church was on 2326 North High Street. It's still there, but it's not being used anymore as a church. But yes, he would, raise funds and things for them down there. But yeah, he was always a giving person. And that was one thing that we've learned from him is to give to others that don't have, and never expecting anything back. So that was, something beautiful that I learned from him. If I have two and I can give one away, I will, because somebody needs it. And especially it feels rewarding to be able to do that because I'm not expecting anything back. I give it with joy. And the same thing with my mother. My mom was well-to-do also. My grandfather, his family came from Spain, and he was very light complected with hazel eyes, red hair, and my grandmother was dark skinned and more Indian like with black hair. And my mom looks a lot like my grandmother. But my other two aunts, they're very light complected and both have red hair. Yeah, so yes, my grandfather had a huge farm. He had several houses and stuff, a lot of land. He would cultivate and give to others. But the one thing I remember is that he was also very giving. When somebody around the area where he lived didn't have, and they had slaughtered a cow or a calf, he would give, to the other people. And when my father came there, before my mom and dad were married, my grandfather gave the land to the church and helped build the church there. So when they converted, they helped a lot. And after a while, some of the land was sold, and when my grandfather was gone, there was nobody to take care of it, and sold the cattle and a lot of the stuff in the ranch. But still, it's like from both my parents, they were very giving to the other people. So, well, we traveled a lot. So I wasn't actually living in Bay City, but this was back in 63 to about 68. Yeah, so my dad opened up churches in different places. So that's even up in Ithaca and Alma. Yes, especially during the summer. So sometimes we would start off in Grand Rapids, then around 1 o'clock we would be in Muskegon. Then around 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, because he would do like a short service, then we would be in Holland, and then back to Grand Rapids in the evening. Then during the week, and I can't remember which days, whether it was Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, he did in Pontiac, Bay City, Saginaw. There was one also in Flint at a certain time. But yeah, we had a lot of services. I don't ever regret traveling so much with my dad because we always had fun. My mom always kept us busy. They would take us out to eat. We would do different, things. And even on the weekends, I remember one time somebody invited us when we were in Grand Rapids to go blueberry picking. That was fun. I think we ate more blueberries than what we put in our baskets, but it was something that my mom wanted us to learn. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun with it, with other people. I've heard some of their stories, and some of them have made me cry and saddened me, everything that they've gone through. But I just thank God that He was so gracious to us in the way that we came here legally, and we've been able to do as much as we can. I worked in Lansing. I worked for PNC Bank. I started back when it was First of America, and I worked in the operations. I didn't work as a teller. I always worked as an accountant in operations. So that was great, 24 years there. And then after that, I took 1 year off when they moved my section of accounting to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And then I decided not to go because my husband worked for General Motors, so I stayed here. Then I took 1 year to travel. And so I went to the Cayman Islands. I went to Mexico a few times. Um, just went with my girlfriends here and there from church, and that was lots of fun. Then I came back, and I didn't want to work. Well, my husband didn't want me to work. But then I said, I need my own money. So I worked with Farm Bureau for 13 years.